Hello, everyone. My name is Rita, and I am the Community Growing Organizer for Seeds for Growth. I'm here today to do some decorations for trees, inside or out. It's up to you. This is what they are. I got a range of different designs. Some are imprinted, such as this one here. And some actually have our dried flowers and leaves embedded. So today I'm going to show you how these are made. So what do we need? First thing first, we're going to need some air drying clay. Now, I like using this one, but you can also make this without actually buying this. And what I usually use with the children and back in the past, and sometimes when I haven't got as much money as I like to use plain flour and salt. It's called salt dough. So there's plain flour, salt, quite a lot of salt, and water. And you just mix it into a dough. And you just have to cut out your shapes and bake them into the oven. For about maybe about 10 minutes. But I'm going to use the air drying clay. And with this air drying clay, what you do is, again, you manipulate it, make sure it's all nice and soft before you start. You're also going to need some greaseproof paper, because this really helps to not let it stick to your surface. A rolling pin as well, so rolling it out flat. And a few natural materials. So I've got things like pine cones and seed pods and a few other bits and bobs. Some water, just in case your clay goes a little bit dry. And also a cookie cutter. But today I'm not going to use a cookie cutter. I'm going to use a lid, because I want some round ones. But you can use Christmas cookie cutters if you need, or flowered leaf shapes, or any kind of shape of cutter that you want. Or if you're really artistic, you can do it freehand by cutting it with a knife. So first thing first, what we have to do is make sure our clay is not dry out too much. And you add a little bit of water, which I've got in a bowl right here. And then I lay down my greaseproof paper. Now, that should stay in place. But if it doesn't stay in place, then don't worry, it'll just move around. But so, like with pastry, you would then make a ball. And what I like to do is kind of flatten it out first, the palm of my hands, so that I've got sort of like not a ball anymore, but it's flat. Enough for the rolling pin to sit on top. So I'll put that right here. I, as always, like to add a little bit of water to things just to stop things from sticking. So I've got a little bit of water on my fingertips, just rubbing it up and down the rolling pin a little bit. And then give this a little roll out. Now, what you're looking to do is flatten out your clay, but not too flat, because you need space for your imprint to go into the clay. So depending on how big you want your decoration to be, your hanging, or however many you want to cut. So I've only put out a little bit of clay away from the whole pack, turning as I go so that I don't sort of just roll on one side all the time, and try and lift and turn a bit like pastry, but not like pastry, because pastry is a lot more delicate. So once I've got it down a bit, and it's not too flat yet, it's not too flat, but it's getting there. And it's at this point that I'm going to add a little bit of water, just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to get whatever material I want to print. So I have got a range of different materials here. So for the imprinted ones, I'm going to use some of these leaves. These leaves are citronella. And what I did was take off a plant yesterday. And to keep her in shape, I've put her between two pieces of paper because she does like to curl up a bit. But she does have this nice pattern. Now, sometimes this can go horribly wrong and the pattern doesn't actually come out at all because maybe I haven't pressed enough or the leaf is too dry or there's loads of things that can go wrong. But the best thing about clay is that you just scrunch it up and start again or use a different material, which is great. So I'm going to give this one a whirl. So I'm going to lay her down. Lay this little leaf down. I'm not going to put any greaseproof paper on top because sometimes that greaseproof paper moves and shifts and can create a different pattern altogether. It's not what I'm after. So with a little bit of pressure, I start at the top, hands flat, and give a good squeeze down. Now hopefully this works. I haven't really tried this leaf out, but I'm going to give her a go right now. So as I've laid her down and I've rolled on top, it's become embedded in the clay. Now, that alone looks lovely, I must admit. But I'm going to just see what pattern comes up. Now, I usually like to use a little tool or something to lift up. So I'm going to do that now. Hopefully you can still see. I'm going to lift that up now. And let you all know that this actually worked, which is amazing. And there's our print, if I could show you right there. Now what I'm going to do is I could use the whole print and use this as a plate or a bowl or even just a big hanging. But what I'm going to do is just take part of that pattern with my cookie cutter. So with my lid. So I'm going to just decide where I want to sort of take a section. So I'm going to go at the top, press firm, give it a bit of a twist again. Whoop. Now she's in the lid. Just have to get her out. There's the print. I know she's still a bit thick, but it looks nice. This might be one of those decorations that I hang outside. When they're quite firm and thick like this, then they actually last a lot longer outside. So I've got that nice print going on. Now, leaves are good, I must admit. Leaves are really, really good for this. However, there is other materials that you can use to make these a little bit more special. And after doing these for a little while with leaves, different types of leaves, I started to look into what other things would make a nice little print, especially at this time of the year. And there's loads of them around. And they are pine cones. I've realized that pine cones do a really good print. So I'm going to do a pine cone right now. Roll this one all the way, a bit thinner this time. Not so thick as the last ones. So I'm going around a few more times, making sure I turn as I go. So I'm not constantly rolling on the same side. But also leaving enough thickness to make an imprint. So I'm going to do two different types of prints that I realized that work quite nice going into the clay. As I said, the pine cone is really good. And this little seed pod head here. I can't remember what plant she's from, but I might put it in the comments or something in a link when I remember. Yeah, so with these guys, you don't use a rolling pin. Well, this one you do, but not this one. So with the pine cone, what you have to do is just find your space and just just roll it in, just press it in. I mean, you can press in the whole shape if you want to of the pine cone, up and down. So you get tops and bottom. Now, try your best not to be too heavy-handed with this one, with the pine cone, because it has a way of going through the clay. As you can see, it makes this nice little pattern in the clay. And then what I'll do with that one, again, take in my cutter, find the nicest spot that I want to cut in. Now, usually what I do is when I have a pattern across the clay, what I like to do is take part of that with a part of plain clay, because it's sort of, sometimes it looks a little bit nicer than just having the full-on pattern. Ooh, a little bit of a hustle to get that one out, but managed. Now, as I was saying, I like to leave part clear and have the pattern underneath. And as I was saying about going too heavy, sometimes you can make these little holes at the back, which you could leave in. I mean, if you've got lights or anything, you've got it indoors, you've got fairy lights or anything, it will shine through. But what I like to do is just close them up. So I use a little bit of water on my finger and just gently rub the top, rub the clay closed. So I don't want the light shining through. So I try my best to just rub that closed as much as I can. Pop that one to one side with the others. And with the seed pod one, hope you can still see. With the seed pod one, what I like to do is just put that down on the clay. And again, start from the seed head. Crunch that in a little bit, just roll over, and a little bit of stem. Not bad. Could be better. I'll cut that one out and then I'll show you. Now, if you do some prints and it doesn't actually work the first time, as I said, just do it again. And if there's any bits of the clay that looks a little bit like it's dry or cracking, just add a little bit of water to your fingers, like I've just done here. And I've got this nice little pattern from the seed head. Now, to hang those, you'd need to put a hole in, and it's best to do it now rather than dry, obviously. And these will take about 24 hours to dry through. So you've got a bit of time to readjust things, I suppose, or if you decide, no, I don't really want this one anymore, you could just start again. But to make my holes, I found that a stick works really, really well because it gives me the kind of hole I need. And I've got two varieties. Oh, if I could just reach that. I've got one thick and one thin. So I'll use this one for the outdoor ones because I might want to hang it up with something a bit thicker than, and a thin one for the indoor ones. So with the ones that I think are going to be the outdoor ones, which are these thicker ones, I just have to lay it on the table, make my hole just a little bit further away from the actual design. Poke the stick through. I like to clean up the back as well to keep that open, just using a little bit of water, just folding down the back of the hole. Sealing it. Oop. Bit fiddly. so it makes me more hard. So I'll do that with the other one on the thinner one as well. And just put a hole. There we go. Right through. Now you can leave them like this if you wanted to. If you've got a very simple design in your garden, you just want very minimalistic hanging, then just leaving them plain like this to dry is perfect. Go no further, just leave them to dry. But I'm a little bit extra, so I like mine to be coloured in some way. And the ones that I've got here that I've coloured, and I've put glitter on the back, biodegradable glitter as well, but these are not going in the bin. These are going to stay forever for as long as they last. So the ones that I've got the colours in, what I like to use is one of my favourite old-fashioned recycled tricks, which is my old makeup. Love it. I'm not going to tell you the brand of makeup. It could be anybody. But this is makeup that I don't use anymore. And while it's wet, semi-damp, I like to go in with a bit of colour in the imprint. So with this one, I think I'll go for this golden colour. So I'm just going to use this gold colour. The thing about makeup is it's got a high pigmentation and they do have a lot of glitter. So there's no need for glitter. There's no need for extras. You just use this and it goes through. I'll put it on to this one. So you just load up your brush and gently go over your imprint. Blow off any excess or use the excess to go all the way up. But I just want to outline where the print was. I can go and use another colour in here as well and add depth if I'm really artistic, if I'm really feeling like, yeah, I'm going to do this today. So eyeshadows, using eyeshadows is a great way, instead of throwing them away, using them within the artwork. And they work really, really well with clay, I must admit. So after using the eyeshadow, I can colour in the design. And I can do that on quite a few of them, which make it look really nice when you're hanging it from the tree. And then I'll leave that one to dry. But for the ones that are embedded, it's a great way of actually just decorating your hangings with natural materials without having to colour them in after. So if you're anything like me, in a gardener that likes to sort of save seeds and save different types of leaves, and you see a leaf and you can't help but pick it up and want to dry it and hold on to it, or flower heads, you're a great flower head collector. Like myself, I do like to press flowers and dry flowers. Some survive, some don't. I must admit, I use the old-fashioned way of tissue paper, newspaper, paper books, and put them inside books and stack them up. Sometimes it works well and I can save a flower and keep it all intact, and sometimes I can't. So the ones that I do keep intact, I like to be able to keep in some way. And this is a great way of keeping them, or giving them away as gifts. Because sometimes when you're pressing flowers, you can have loads and loads of flowers, you're not sure what to do with them. So they're nice for card making, but this is a nice, great way of doing it as well. So adding a little bit of water down, again, just in case. I just want things to stick. I don't like it to be dry. I've got some materials here that I saved. So that I've dried. So this one is stone dry, if you can see that. And I also saved and pressed some calendulas. So I'm going to use the calendulas first. by just laying them down. Oh, might have placed that one in the wrong place, so I'll place it over here. And then with this, you need a bit more pressure because you're actually pressing it into the clay this time. So right the way across. Doesn't matter if it curls up, just peel it back. And again, the other way. If you have to hold down your clay, do so, but it's used because the rolling pin might be a bit dry. So just adding a bit of water to your rolling pin really works well. And then from there, I can then cut them out. Might leave this one with a bit more space around it. And there we have it, ingrained inside the clay. Now, if you want to make sure that they're in properly, just roll over them again. It will make it a little bit wider, but it'll also make it a little bit flatter. And these ones are great for inside the home because then they're not so heavy and they lay better on the tree as well. Sort of when you're hanging them, they lay better inside the tree. So I've just rolled over those ones again. So they're stuck in. And I'll make my holes as well for the thread to go through. Just making sure I've left enough room for it to dry and hold well. Again, flatten this down. Now you can tie these up, tie them with anything that you want, whether it's going to be a bit of string when they're dry or some thin wire. It's like a plastic almost that they use for bracelet making. You can also get invisible strings, sort of like that you hang and you don't see on the tree. Now these are really, really good for tree indoors and outdoors. I know the trees at the moment are looking a bit bare, so if you've got a balcony or a garden, got a tree that's looking a little bit like, oh, I've lost all my leaves, this would be a really lovely way of actually decorating that tree outside. Now to keep them, how do you keep them safe if you're putting them outside? Well, what I use after they've dried and I've colored them and or not, then what I like to use is either PVA glue, which I will put over as a coating, but as like with this one, because it's going outside, which I use hodgepodge, oh, Mod Podge, and it's like PVA but a little bit better, but don't tell PVA. But PVA is very, very good. A couple of coats of it will actually keep it as a varnish. It dries clear as well. So once I'm done, I will put whatever on the top. Once they're dry, I would add either PVA or the Mod Podge, which you can buy online. And then to do the back, then I'll do the same. So same with this glittered one. You can either cover them with glitter or with tissue paper or with newspaper. So you could just rip out bits or have a message on the back, write a message with newspaper, cut out all the different letters and stick them on. So you're creating a message on the back. And then once you've done that, you then PVA all over one more time. So those are my hangings. I've actually got a little bit more clay and a little bit more time. So what I'm going to do is just use this bit of clay to do a little bit of a branch. So because it's a little bit of clay, I just make a little circle, probably smaller than my cutter. but I'll see if I can get it to the same size as my cutter, because I don't like to leave clay behind. And if there is any little offcuts, I like to make little beads. So when I'm hanging my hangers, some of them have a little bead that I've made at the top, which is with leftover clay. So I just make my own little beads. So with that, I've got the whole branch. So the whole branch won't fit on. So this is what I want to show you. It's select the bit that you like. And I quite like that. And because it's dry already, I've already dried it for a few weeks now. It's an easy snap. So, and it's so easy to snap. You can actually snap off the leaves that you want as well, but you don't want to do that. So I'll lay this one down face up because I want it as the pattern. Just roll that in gently. Just squash that in so it's embedded. Oh, I think I could cut it out. There we go. I'll cut that one out. Make sure she's embedded in. Squash it in again. Might have squashed her in too much, but hey ho. There we go. There. Adorable. Once they're dry, all these outside edges that are rough, I usually use a nail file, an emery board, to file them in. Or, as they're wet, I just use a wet finger and go around the edge. Just smoothing that out. So as it dries, it's already got a decent edge on. So no hard work after with filing them all down. But I quite like the idea of filing them down, especially when I cut them into a shape and I want to get into all these little grooves. So I'm hoping that you will go outdoors, see some nice bits of leaves and sticks and twigs, and might give this a go, because they are quite fun to do and they are fun to make, and they last for a long time, especially if you're making them out of salt dough. So salt dough will last if you put a lot of salt into the dough, then it will preserve it and it won't go moldy or anything. So you'd have Christmas decorations for a long, long time. I hope that you had a good time enjoying this. And if you want to know how I made my hanging, what I did was used hangers. So I used these wire plastic coated hangers, which are not really that great for hanging anything. Squash them together, give it a bit of a turn, bit of an angle. Now, if you like, you can add many together and just at the bottom, you just use a bit of masking tape or anything and then stick them inside the jar. And that's what I've done here, just put them inside the jar. Bit of fake snow, some extra pine cones. And then I can pop them in and hang my hangings off. So I haven't got my tree yet, my indoor tree, but this works perfectly also for drying. Sometimes when it's just not so dry yet, but you want the table that they're sitting on, and you put all your strings together. So this is a great way of actually hanging them up when they're semi-dry and hanging them up indoors. So I'm hoping that you will not only go out there and enjoy nature, but while you're out there, do some collecting. Grab some natural resources, make a dough or buy some air drying clay and have a go. I hope you do. It's been fun. And I hope that I'll be able to come back and do another slot with you all another afternoon or another morning. Thank you so much. Bye.